Hour. Tweets are coming in already at Rich Key on Q at 1490 Sportsbet. We'll read them off in about 15 or so minutes. And again, I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, we're happy about this. We're happy about this, which means we will get, hopefully, more Johnny Mac now. Maybe we'll dive into a little football in the 20s on the Thursdays as well. But we do it every Tuesday right here on a Tuesday edition of BYP. Our good friend John McMullen does a great job covering the Philadelphia Eagles and, of course, Bird 365. He's all over the place. I can't even keep track. Philly Voice, SI, him and Jody Mack. He's probably happy to get out of that heat today. In practice, the walking mash unit. I just don't know. I don't know if they're going to be able to field a squad come Thursday night. What do you say, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, man. I'm thankful for Camp Sirianni today. It's been run about 80 minutes. I'm loving this new coach.
What's the latest on some of these injuries? I mean, what's the concern here with Dillard out?
Andre's going to be out multiple weeks, listed as week to week with a sprained knee. Got hurt in individual drills today. So that's bad news for him, obviously, trying to fend off Jordan Mailata, who's going to be the first team now left tackle for the next number of weeks in a best-case scenario. So you have to think he's got a chance to lock down that job for at least week one. It's looking more and more he had been out playing Andre Dillard anyway.
Yeah.
So this could be. It was interesting. Obviously, the Eagles put out their first unofficial depth chart in advance of the Pittsburgh game. They did not identify a starter at left tackle. Nick Sirianni wouldn't identify a starter before practice. And then sometimes it works out for you because he gets hurt, and now you know who the starter's going to be, and that's Jordan Mailata.
Walker gets carted off. James boot on his left foot. I mean, if there was a question mark going into this season, right, when we talk about depth or their lack of, what would be your biggest concern? Is it linebacker depth? Is it tackle depth? Is it offensive line depth? Where would be your biggest concern?
Well, my biggest concern would be the fact that, is this team got to be ready, to be honest. A lot of these injuries, Ryan Kerrigan underwent thumb surgery. He's out
yes, thank you.
7 to 10 days. Javon Wallace, who has been starting at safety for Rodney McLeod, who's on the PUP list. He strained his groin, so he's out week to week. A lot of these things are the Eagles being overly cautious in trying to get these players to week one. Not all of them, but, Craig James is in the boot, as you mentioned. That's day-to-day, according to them. Basically, if anybody is not feeling 100%, they're going to hold them out right now. So it's interesting, and they seem to be going in a new philosophy, a new way, and the fact that they've had so many injury issues. They're going to be overtly cautious and try to get to week one as healthy as possible. Ultimately, I don't think this team is that deep anyway, other than the offensive line and the defensive line. Everywhere else, they have depth issues. So, anybody's out, you're a little bit concerned.
You mentioned, just get through the season. Now, I'm wondering, will they take that type of... Well, before I get into that, I mean, look, is this the worst-kept secret that Jalen Hurts is the week one starter?
Yeah, it is. I mean, unless the week one starter isn't here, wink, wink, you know who I'm talking about. I just don't even like to mention the name at this point.
I know.
He hasn't been good, but I mean, they have nobody else other than Joe Flacco. They don't want to start Joe Flacco. I think it's kind of comical. I mean, he's taken every single first-team rep, and they refuse to call him the starting quarterback. I don't, there's that old-school mentality that you don't hand anything to anyone. I suppose that's the way they're going about it, but I mean, if you don't give anybody first-team reps, he's going to be the starter. So he's going to be the starter, and look, he's an off-schedule quarterback. In other words, he's going to make some plays, and He's going to make some plays with his legs. He's going to make some plays extending things. He's going to make some plays that are going to make you go, wow, that's so impressive. You can't win consistently in this league with off-schedule offense. You got to be able to do things from the pocket. You got to be able to do things on schedule. I don't know if the Eagles are going to be able to do those things with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and it kind of leads me into this question. You said he hasn't been very good, and, I take your word for it. I'm not there. I go by what I read and what I see and what I hear, and it seems as though there is a I don't want to say there's an in-between with that. Has there been, the strengths of Jalen Hurts that we've talked about in the past? You're out there every day. Is he able to develop more of a rapport with some of the wideouts? Are they trying to get him more involved, utilizing the tight end to take some pressure off him? Is there a positive you can find in what Hurts has done? What are we, 10, 11 days into training camp / practice?
Well, in a lot of ways, I don't think he's a practice player in that, again, you, when you talk about off-schedule offense, you don't practice that. That's not the goal of football practice. That's, sort of sandlot offense. You can't practice it. It's got to come in the moment in a game, and I think that's the type of player. So in a lot of ways, he might be a game day player, not a practice player. As far as having some success, when you're sort of repping things and trying to get out patterns to wide receivers who don't get separations, he hasn't looked good. Part of that is the receivers continue to be poor. Devontae Smith is not out there. He's another player that's been injured with a sprained MCL. He started to lean more on the tight ends. I think, Nick Sirianni's gotten to the same point Doug Peterson would get. And he talks about he wants speed on the field. Rager, Watkins, Hightower, they can all run. Even Adrian Killens, everybody can run, but they can't, they're not good football players at this point. So all of a sudden you look at Zach Ertz, is still Zach Ertz. And Dallas Goedert, and the tight ends are better than the receivers. Mm-hmm. And I think they're defaulting to that again. And they will default to that as long as Zach Ertz remains here.
Sirianni's going to be the play caller when he makes his NFL debut as a head coach Thursday night when the Eagles obviously open up their preseason against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I look at it, I had to go back. He's got experience calling plays. Frank Reich gave him a little bit of leadway calling some plays during preseason games with the Colts, I think under McCoy as well with the Chargers. I went back and I saw that he did one game with Kansas City against Green Bay late in the season about 6 or 7 years ago after Haley was fired as head coach. I know he's not going to reveal, right? He's not going to show his hand, so to speak. But here's a rookie head coach basically with a bunch of young, green-faced, fresh coordinators. How many times did we talk over the years about Doug and once he lost the Frank Reichs of the world that the guy just maybe the bloom was off the rose, so to speak. He didn't really have a good support system. Is there a fear now that there's going to be, or I guess the reality is there's going to be probably some harsh growing pains here if you're Sirianni? You would think so, correct? Going out there and again, this is all new to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think every rookie head coach, no matter their age, is going to have growing pains. And, but Nick mentioned an interesting thing today at his press conference, and the fact that he admitted he's not going to show much in the preseason. And one of the reasons why is he thinks he has an advantage because other teams don't have a ton of film on Jalen Hurts, so it's that new thing. So maybe you're a little bit ahead of it, at least early in the season, before people can get a good look at what you want to do. And I think that's geared toward the RPO game. I think they're going to be a really, really, really heavy RPO team because that's what Jalen does well. And credit to Nick Sirianni because he's not going to be the pound the square peg guy in the round hole and try to be a big ego guy and say, no, we're going to run this, we're going to run this. He's going to run what the quarterback he has can do successfully. And that's a lot of that kind of stuff. One read, use it, take advantage of his legs, take advantage of his running ability, and try to move forward from there. And if something happens and Joe Flacco has to play, it'll do a 180. He'll do something completely different. That was one of his strengths that the Eagles stressed coming from Indy, because they had all the issues with Andrew Luck's sudden retirement.
Right.
So they had Luck, they had Jacoby Brissett, they had Phillip Rivers, and they always put together a credible offense, and they were different offenses because of the quarterbacks. So I think he's proving that he's going to do that.
4:30 on a Tuesday, football in the 20s, Tuesday edition of BYP. Rich Quinones here with Johnny Mac, John McMullen, at JF McMullen on Twitter, NFL Eagles Insider, SI, now Philly Voice, Jacob Media, Sports Map Radio, Birds 365 show, obviously with Jody Mac, and right here on 1490 Sports Betting Radio as well. So Johnny Mac is all over the place covering the Eagles and the NFL. What are we expecting? How much playing time should we expect Thursday for Hurts?
Well, I think he needs a lot of reps. I can't imagine he plays less than a quarter. He's got to be out there. He's got to get live reps. He's got to see different looks, and I think Pittsburgh's a good first test because they play defense a lot differently than the Eagles do. So I think that part of it's good as well. Now, obviously, neither side is going to show a ton, but just from their the way they play base defense, I think it's nice to have a little curveball thrown at the quarterback. And, yeah, he just needs to get sharper, and I think they're going to work on things. That's what you do. I mean, nobody's game planning, so fans are going to get either really disappointed about this or really happy about this. You're just working on yourselves. You're not worried about the Pittsburgh Steelers and vice versa. And what they want to do is get Jalen Hurts more up to speed as a passer. So you might see them forcing him to throw from the pocket. Maybe it's ugly, but they want to work on those things. It's not about trying to win the football game.
Let me go around the league for a couple moments while I have you. Let's get into Josh Allen, because he, as they say, he got paid. I went back and I was looking at some of my tweets and some of my Facebook posts, and this was probably a couple of years ago. Troy Aikman actually said, because I quoted it during a broadcast, basically, the accuracy is not there. You can't teach accuracy. And now I'm looking, look where this kid is right now in his career. And they had a very impressive 13-3 mark last year, run into the playoffs. But listen, he's breaking the bank. He is breaking the bank now with that 6-year extension, right? Entering year 4 with that 6-year contract extension, $150 million guaranteed. So I guess it's safe to say, right, anything short of a Super Bowl win, and I guess Bills Mafia, the fans will be disappointed. I don't, I think it's cliche to also say stuff like, well, how much pressure is, look, this in the NFL. What are you getting paid on? A little bit of what you've done in the past, and then what they believe you can kind of do in the future. So what was your instant reaction to Josh Allen's 6-year extension?
I mean, contracts in this league are about timing and circumstance. We all know it doesn't mean you're the best player, you're the second best player. Obviously, Josh Allen was going to get paid coming off last season when he was a legitimate, top 3 MVP candidate, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You mentioned Troy Aikman, by the way. That's one of the things the Eagles point to with Josh Allen. Troy's not the only one who says that. Most people in this league say you can't teach accuracy. Sure. You either come in with it or you don't. And that's, one of the knocks on Jalen Hurts. So they point to Josh Allen and say, well, look at the way this guy improved. A lot of it was Stephon Diggs. A lot of it was having a big-time receiver who was able to get that separation. Maybe Devontae Smith does that for Jalen Hurts when he's healthy. Who knows? But, Protection, obviously, a big part of it. But it's an outlier. I don't think you look at Josh Allen and say, his rookie season, what he looked like, okay, this guy's just not accurate enough. And then you go to last season and he's great. That's the outlier. I wouldn't count on that in a lot of other instances where you have guys who look inaccurate early in their career. It's a bit hard to explain, to be honest.
Pat Robinson retires, which I guess throws a little chink in the armor over there with the Saints cornerback dilemma. Of course, Eagles fans will never have to pay for a drink again. I mean, his best season arguably was 2017, the pick of Keenum in the playoffs. So where do the Saints go from here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the Saints are in that situation, and that's what happens in this league. They were a significant playoff contender for a really long time. Had a couple, a little bit of hiccups there with those 7-9 Jeff Fisher-like run. But when Drew Brees was playing at that kind of optimal level, they were going in every year, and they should. That's what you should do when the championship window is open. Obviously, they were only able to get one, but they were, as I said, a significant contender. Now they're sort of in the same transition mode. You hate to use the term rebuild. I don't like the quarterback situation. I don't know how you could like the quarterback situation. And now you have the issues with Michael Thomas as well.
That's right.
The Saints are coming back to the pack, and I think a lot of people are happy about that because Sean Payton's got a lot of enemies.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the NFL, they're elephants, right? They just do not forget. And the Saints, a lot of, the Vegas has them with their win total being right around 9.5, 10. I'm just not.
I go under on that. Man.
Yeah,
Oof,
I would.
That's big. That's a big number.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah, that's right. That's a big matzo ball there. How about the Dallas Cowboys and Prescott? Right. So Cooper comes off the PUP list. Dak's dealing with a couple little, I guess you can say, in little injuries here and there with the throwing shoulder. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to go back to the line and Zeke and Prescott. Do you believe the Cowboys, though, on paper, 100% healthy, they should be the clear-cut favorites to win the NFC East?
I don't know if it's I don't know if it's clear-cut because I think you can make a case for Washington as well. But, yeah, I mean, if Dan Quinn can turn that into a middle-of-the-road defense, they should be able to win some games. I'm not talking top 10.
Sure.
Certainly not top 5. They don't even have the talent for that. But if they can just not be historically bad, and you're telling me they're healthy and Dak Prescott's ready to go, and those receivers, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Ezekiel Elliott, the offensive line is back. You saw it before Dak Prescott. People kind of forget. Before he got hurt last year, his numbers he was putting up were outrageous.
Yeah.
Offensively. They were still losing games because the defense was that terrible. So I think a lot of it depends on the defensive side of the ball. And it's interesting because Washington's the exact opposite. You could argue they're going to have a top 5 defense. They should have a top 5 defense, starting with that front. And now they have Ryan Fitzpatrick. Can he manage games? Can he stay away from the Fitz-tragic games? I forget who I was talking to on Birds 365. It might have been Adam Beasley. It's like he never gets a chance to play out of his slumps. Everybody has slumps.
Right.
But Ryan's always the bridge quarterback. And, when they have the bad game, they say, okay, we're going to bench him and go back to Tua or whoever in years past. And look, he was a better quarterback last year. Not even close. Maybe if somebody lets him play through those hiccups, who knows what happens. But I think, those two teams are definitely at the top of the division, and the Eagles and the Giants are in the more uncertainty category. I'll put it nicely.
Fitzpatrick. 10-6 with the Jets in 2015. I just think it. Because I think they're quick to pull the trigger, right? Because he should be that coming off the bench kind of guy like Vinny the Microwave Johnson. But you're right. It'll be interesting to see. Listen, you might not have to worry about him throwing 3,500 yards and 25 touchdowns this year because that defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. It's going to win some games. So they might be able to win their 8, 9, 10 games this year. I think all the way the schedule shapes out for these teams. Listen, the Eagles, they can be staring down. If they don't beat Atlanta to open up the season, they're going to go 0-4.
Yeah, I mean, a lot depends on the quarterback, and a lot depends on all schedule stuff, as I said. And I don't want to be in a position to where you can't game plan all schedule offense. You can't count on it from week to week, and that's why I say. Jalen Hurts might be able to make a miraculous play for you, but you can't put that in the game plan next week.
No.
And that's the issue I think Nick Sirianni's dealing with. That's the issue I think the Eagles are quickly recognizing. And that's why we said since the start of this, hey, Jeffrey Lurie, and by the way, I criticize Jeffrey Lurie a lot, but he's right on this, and I say it all the time. He wants and he believes you need a top-line, top-of-the-level passing offense to win consistently in the NFL. And that's why Jalen Hurts is not going to be the long-term starter of this team. I'm sorry, he's not.
Let me get you out of here on this. And I should have actually asked you this question earlier, but you kind of led me right into it. Do you think if you were to give the Eagles brass some truth serum and they whisk it down, do you think their fear would be like, oh man, what if this kid actually plays well and they win a couple games? Because now all of a sudden,
I think they would. Yeah. I'll put it this way: they want to go in a different direction. They want a different quarterback. I'll put it nicely.
I mean, this kid, he doesn't have a shot. He doesn't have a chance. They're setting this kid up to fail.
Exactly. They don't want that type of offense. They don't. They drafted Jalen Hurts to be a good backup quarterback, not to be a good starting quarterback. They don't want that type of offense.
I'll lead you on this. Ben Simmons, we've seen it. The video is out.
It's back. It's a tradition like any other, I said. Forget about Jim Van.
I told Kai Carlin I was going to block him if I ever see these horrible videos again of him shooting with no one in his face in a gym.
Every year, and people fall for it. I'm amazed. I will never stop being amazed by people.
No. You,
every year.
They're the worst. You and I, we think alike on that one, my friend. All right, well, listen, I know you had a long day. I always appreciate it, pal, and hopefully we'll talk next week.
All right, thanks, Rich.
All right, Johnny Mac, be well, pal. The great John McMullen, 4:43, quick timeout.